Hello, this is Gina Piscatelli with the fourth lecture on the muscular system for students in Anatomy and Physiology 1 at Madison Area Technical College. This lecture focuses on how myofilaments move to produce a muscle contraction. And I want to show you just for a minute a little animation. There's this cartoon kind of thing drawn on this slide. And it's supposed to represent multiple sarcomeres. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sarcomeres. And I'm going to show you this animation so that you can see what it looks like. At least I'm going to try. So notice that we have sarcomeres shortening. The black lines, which are the Z discs, come closer together. And the actin filaments, which are blue, come closer together. This changes the amount of light zones or I bands that you see. None of the filaments shorten or lengthen. They just slide past one another. So what shortens is the entire sarcomere, not just the individual proteins. Okay, that was just a preview. Now we're going to explain how it happens a little bit. Okay, so here is a picture of a relaxed sarcomere up on top, a Z disc and a Z disc with the A band in the middle, which is myosin, right? When the sarcomere contracts, notice that the Z discs come closer together. It's a narrower region there. The width of myosin, or the A band, is the same. And that happens because actin filaments attached to the Z disc just slide right past the myosin towards the M line or the middle. So the Z discs come closer together. The H band will basically disappear, this light region that exists within the A band. And the I bands, which are light, will basically disappear. The A band won't change in width, or at least it shouldn't. So does the A band narrow or widen? No, it doesn't. Now we need to examine how the sliding of this actin occurs. Well, it occurs because actin and myosin form what is known as cross bridges. You can just think of it as binding. So the myosin heads are going to bind to the actin filaments, at least if the myosin binding sites on the actin are exposed. And that's only going to happen if calcium is present, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is a cross bridge right here with the myosin heads bound to actin subunits. Then the next thing that will happen is that this myosin head will kind of tilt. It'll bend. And it's shown down here in the picture in the bottom. And that pulls the actin filament to the left as the myosin head moves to the left. Now, even in relaxed muscles, here we have some relaxed muscles, the actin and myosin has some cross bridge formation. Just percentage-wise, it's low, okay, because you're not getting a full muscle contraction. But when the muscle actively contracts to the point where you can see it, of course, there are many, many cross bridges that have formed in all the sarcomeres, in all the myofibrils, in all the myocytes, etc., and muscle fascicles. Now, for the cross bridge formation to occur, I mentioned that we need calcium. And calcium is used to move over the troponin and the tropomyosin so that myosin is no longer blocked from binding to actin. So actin has myosin binding sites, and calcium binds to troponin, which then shifts And that allows tropomyosin to shift. And so now the binding sites on actin are exposed. And once the cross bridge formation occurs, then the myosin head swivels and the actin filament moves. Okay, there's a cycle to this formation and then detachment of cross bridges. Let's start in the upper left that's labeled stage 1. We'll consider this muscle to have just contracted, but now it's relaxing. Okay, so it's relaxed, and there's plenty of ATP around. So the myosin head binds to ATP. Now that myosin head acts as an enzyme. And so now, if we go over to stage 2, ATP has been broken down into ADP and inorganic phosphate. In this state, the myosin head, while bound to ADP and inorganic phosphate, can bind to the actin. So it does so. So myosin binds to the actin, and of course remember calcium has to have already been here. And as soon as that happens, the ADP and the inorganic phosphate fall off. It's like the myosin head prefers the actin and its shape changes, and now ADP and inorganic phosphate fall off. That release of ADP causes the myosin head to swivel or shift, pulling the actin filament when it shifts. So now what we have is a cross bridge that's formed, and we have a contracted sarcomere, probably a contracted muscle if this happened everywhere. And for the muscle to relax, which is really going to have to happen because this needs to happen more than just once. It's like this myosin head needs to bind here and then bind farther along and then farther along to get the actin to move all the way to the center. This one swivel doesn't move the actin filament enough. It's going to have to be released and then bind farther down the actin filament or farther along. So anyway, for this cross bridge to be released, to go from stage 4 to stage 1 so that the cycle can happen again, ATP is going to have to be available, and myosin will bind to ATP in preference over the actin. So it releases actin and it binds to ATP, which of course doesn't stick around very long because myosin is an enzyme for ATP, breaking it down, catabolizing it. We call it ATP hydrolysis, right? So the myosin head again will break down the ATP. Now it can bind to actin. It does so in stage 3. It releases the ADP and inorganic phosphate, and now it swivels again. So the actin filament's pulled a little bit further. And then if there's enough ATP still around, the cycle will continue again. And it happens over and over and over again. So I wrote down what you need to know about each stage, I guess. Stage 1, ATP binds to the myosin head. Myosin needs that to detach from actin. So this is the state of relaxing. Relaxing the cross bridge. Oh, that didn't look very good, did it? Stage 2, myosin breaks down ADP and inorganic phosphate. That actually kind of makes the myosin head lay back into the appropriate position, which I didn't mention before. So notice the angle of the myosin head up in stage 1, and at stage 2 it's not so extreme. right? So the myosin head is open or relaxed. And now it's in the correct binding position so that during stage 3, the myosin head actually binds to the actin. When this occurs, myosin is going to release the ADP and inorganic phosphate. And when that happens, now the myosin head goes back to its cocked position, pulling the actin with it. Now, if ATP is still present in the muscle, which it probably is, then we can go from stage 4 back through another cycle of cross-bridge formation. It's just that it'll be at a different point of the actin filament. So maybe originally the myosin head bound here. Now it's going to bind here, and then it'll bind there. It kind of reminds me of those wrenches. I don't remember what they're called. Never mind. I'll just make a fool of myself. So detachment is required for another cross bridge to form further along the actin filament. And so that maximizes how much the sarcomere can shorten. So there's some other controls for cross bridge formation. Obviously, calcium has to be present to expose the binding sites for myosin on actin. And calcium isn't just around all the time. It's released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum when a nerve stimulates the muscle. When the nerve stimulates the muscle gets excited and calcium pours out into the cytoplasm. So now it'll be available for cross-bridge formation. At the end of muscle contraction, when it's time for a muscle to relax, that calcium is put back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. We call it being resequestered. So calcium is a big control, as is neural stimulation. And so neural innervation controls the availability of calcium and therefore cross-bridge formation. So muscle contraction is really linked to excitation by a nerve. So we call this excitation-contraction coupling. So the muscle has to be excited and then it will contract. And the reason it has to be excited is because the calcium has to be released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which we're going to talk about in another lecture. Thank you.